It happened when I was 18. I'm 22 now, living in San Antonio, Texas. It was my senior year of high school, but everything went horribly different from what I'd imagined. Back then, I rented a small house on the edge of town, hoping to feel independent and grown up. The house was old and creaky, with dim windows that looked out onto a wild, overgrown garden. At first, I didn't pay it much attention, enjoying my freedom and spending time with friends. But one day I noticed something strange. Every night when I returned home, there was the same old newspaper lying in the hallway. I didn't remember placing it there. It was almost as if someone was leaving it for me to find. The newspaper was dated 1976, and the headline was so faded it looked unreadable. But the longer I stared at it, the clearer the words became. Mysterious murder in old house solved. I chuckled to myself, thinking it was just a random coincidence. An old house, an old newspaper. A few days later, the newspaper vanished, and I forgot about it. But exactly a week later, that same night, I woke up shivering in bone-chilling cold. Getting up, I discovered that all the windows and doors were wide open. Surrounded by an eerie silence, I closed everything and tried to go back to sleep. But just as I was drifting off, I heard the front door slam shut. The newspaper was lying on the floor again. After that, every night brought something terrifying. I heard whispers, footsteps down the hall, and once I even saw a shadow flicker outside the window. The feeling that I wasn't welcome in that house grew stronger every day. One night, I decided to investigate. I sat at the kitchen table with a gas lamp, holding the newspaper in front of me, trying to read every line. But no matter how hard I tried, the words seemed to blur and shift. At one point, I thought I saw the lines moving, forming phrases I couldn't make sense of. And then, I heard the creak of a door behind me. Slowly turning around, I saw a shadow in the doorway. It was the outline of a man, but his face was blurry, unrecognizable. He stood there silently while I sat frozen in fear. And then, he stepped into the lamplight, whispering, "Why are you here? Leave." I bolted to the door and ran out of the house, leaving everything behind. The next day, I found out that a murder had really taken place in that house in 1976, and that the body was never found. Now I know what really happened. I was never meant to be there. I never went back to that house, and though it's been 4 years, sometimes deep at night, I still hear a whisper. Why did you come back? A young couple, Sarah and Mark, along with their 2 children, Jamie and Lily, found an old house for sale at the end of a quiet street in a small American town. With its wraparound porch, intricate woodwork, and sprawling backyard, it seemed like the perfect home. Despite the rumors from locals about strange events, they fell in love with its charm, deciding to ignore the house's history and the townsfolk's whispered warnings. From the first night, however, they sensed something odd. As Sarah unpacked boxes in the living room, she noticed a faint scent of flowers, though there weren't any nearby. She brushed it off, thinking it must be something left from the previous owners. But the next night, the same floral scent, stronger, drifting through the halls. Sarah thought it was strange, but dismissed it as part of the house's old charm. A week later, Mark came home late and found the door to the attic slightly open. He was sure it had been locked. Intrigued, he climbed the narrow staircase and noticed a thick layer of dust disturbed, as if someone had been walking up there recently. He shrugged it off, but the feeling of being watched stayed with him as he descended. That night, both children woke up crying. Jamie said he saw shadows moving by themselves in the hallway. Little Lily was frightened, saying she heard someone whispering in her ear. Sarah and Mark reassured, leaning on the creaks of the old house. Yet, as the days went on, the strange occurrences grew. One evening, Sarah noticed an old photograph tucked behind a shelf in the living room. The image was yellowed, showing a family from a different era, standing in front of their beloved home. Something about their expressions unsettled her. They looked far too serious. She decided to put it away, but that night, she heard faint whispers when she was alone in the house. It sounded almost like a warning. Then came the footsteps. Every night, at exactly midnight, they heard slow, heavy footsteps pacing the floors above. They'd check, but each time found nothing. Mark installed cameras in the hallway, hoping to catch the source of the noise, but they always returned only blurry, distorted images, as if the cameras malfunctioned each night. After 2 months, Sarah had enough. She searched the town library, hoping to find some clue about the house's past. She stumbled upon an old article. In the 1920s, a family had disappeared from that very home under mysterious circumstances, leaving behind all their belongings. Neighbors reported hearing strange sounds at night before the family vanished without a trace. Police found only empty rooms and the lingering scent of flowers. Feeling increasingly trapped, Sarah and Mark considered leaving, but they knew they couldn't afford another move so soon. They tried to ignore the sounds and the whispers, but one stormy night, everything changed. That night, a fierce wind howled through the town, and the power flickered out. The house felt colder than ever. Sarah lit candles, and as the dim light flickered, shadows seemed to stretch and shift across the walls. Jamie and Lily were too scared to sleep, huddling close to their parents. Suddenly, they heard a loud crash from upstairs. Mark grabbed a flashlight and cautiously headed up, followed closely by Sarah. The attic door was wide open, though it had been bolted shut earlier. The floral scent now filled the air, overpowering. They climbed the steps and found, in the dim light, a mirror they'd never noticed before, leaning against the far wall. As they approached, they saw their reflections, but something was wrong. Their faces looked drained, older, as if they'd aged years in just seconds. Behind them in the mirror, shadowy figures stood, unmoving, watching them. Terrified, they stumbled back, knocking the mirror over and shattering it. At that moment, the floral scent vanished and the footsteps ceased. They thought it was over, until they heard the whisper, clear as day. "We'll be back."
If you liked our video, then please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment.